Thank you very much. I would like to thank first the Principia College for hosting us and the Euphrates Institute. This name I'm connected to by my origin, as I come from Iraq. And when I remember a few years ago when Genesis sent me an email about it, and about the Institute and the creation of the Institute, I was really happy and thrilled that there is an institute here in America that carries the name of one of the great rivers in the world. And I'm not being biased, I hope. I come from Iraq, from Basra, the southern part of Iraq. I grew up there until I was 19 years old. I come from a religious family. My grandfather was the Grand Ayatollah of Basra, and grew up in a very conservative religious household. But at the same time, I was the first grandchild, so that put me in a very unique position, very close to my grandfather. At the same time, being able to go out with him and see and conduct things with his over 50,000 followers. But also at the same time, put me in a special position that I have to be a role model for all of these followers as their, granddaughter in the family. Growing up in this household and under dictator regime was not an easy task. My earliest memories in the 80s when the Iraq-Iran war started. And I was just only in third grade. Being devastated by that and remembering the bombs and how the war affected our lives certainly put me in a different position. But also the brutality of the regime on its own people put me in another different world. Probably many people here did not witness it and have not lived under it. I lost my classmate in third grade when she said why we are in a war with Iran. And she was disappeared with her whole family from the neighborhood. And when that happened, that taught us a lesson. It's like the message of peace makes you, a danger in the community. And when I heard about her disappearing, that was devastating for me. Growing up under this kind of fear, and that we see people disappearing for no reason because they said a word or they participated in a meeting or this or that, that was a constant thing happening. After that, we are, the country is going from one war to another, and we are in the middle of it, and we have no opinion, only oppressed. In fourth grade, my history teacher was talking about Hitler. And when Hitler was mentioned, she said he was a great man. Now, I don't know who Hitler was at that time. And I said, why he's a great man? What did he do? And she said, he put the Jews in a room and he burned them. So I was confused as a child. How a man be a good man when he put people in a room and he burned them? I went back home and I was really confused. When I told her why he's a good man, she said, shut up and sit down. I was confused. I asked my grandfather, and he said, well, Hitler was a criminal. And he killed millions of people. And I said, then why Miss Janet said that in school? And he said, because she's ordered to say that. And I said, she can spare us from saying it. But these kind of messages that you hear it. At the same time, living in Basra was a multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-religious city. We have Christian, we have Mendais, Sunni Shiites. We have people, we used to have Jews in the city, but when I was growing up, no longer they are there. But we still have the neighborhood that they used to live in. So all of these questions in my mind about faith and other religion and people, how can they live peacefully together? Growing up under that up until high school, and I was in Kuwait and visiting a family, and Saddam invaded Kuwait. So I felt that Saddam couldn't live in Iraq without me following me. Then I saw the brutality of the regime, not only on its own people, not only with war with Iran, but also in another country. How this country has been stripped from everything, from its dignity, from you know, people have been tortured and killed and many other things, and the atrocities that's going on there. I went back to Iraq. I was very angry. You know, just a student in high school, but I wanted freedom. I wanted to live under that kind of, I wanted to live in a life that I don't want to, one person, one political party dictate my life. So it was my last year in high school, so one day the principal of the school called me to her office and she said, well, I want to, you're the only student in the school that is not a member of the Ba'ath party, Saddam's party. And I said, well, I want to be independent. She looked at me and she said, there is no such a thing. You have to be a member, otherwise you're not going to be able to take your final exam. And I said, I really want to be independent. I don't want to be part of any political party. Anyway, after an hour, she handed me a paper saying, if the government find out that I belong to any political party or any religious party, they have the right to kill me. I signed that paper happily and I gave it to her because I wanted to have my final exam, and I did. For that little bit, the uprising happened. And I said, the uprising against Saddam Hussein. And we were, at that time, you know, the Iraqi are fighting the NATO, and the Americans are trying to get Saddam out of Kuwait. And it was just an incredible scene. So I was with my own anger that I want to be free, I want to fight, this is my last year in high school, I want to go to college. And here I am in the middle of an uprising. I was one of the first women to be out in the street, mainly young guys. And when I was there, these young guys kept, you know, saying, what are you doing here? This is a fight, and you are a woman. And I said, well, this is my fight too. It's not only yours. I want to be free. I want to live under a democratic system. Long story short, I was part of it, fighting for a few days. I saw Iraq free for a few days. And then Saddam managed to gather his troops back and killed many people. I was injured and hiding for 2 months until I managed to leave Iraq. And when I left Iraq, I went to many countries. I ended up here in the United States, and I get busy with, you know, establishing my life, going to school, having a family, working. And part of me is I have sympathy towards my country and a guilt that I left many people behind, and now I am here. But I am also, I have to build myself to be strong, and Iraq is still under Saddam atrocities. Until 9/11 happened, and that was a wake-up call for me. I felt the terror I left behind was following me here. Not only me, my country, the US now, my family, my neighbors, my colleagues. And at that time, it was a very difficult moment. As I was seeing the, you know, the two towers collapsing on TV, I was just like, what happened? Am I again back in a safe area? At the same time, I was concerned. I'm a woman, Muslim, wearing a headscarf, and what is the reaction? How I'm gonna live here? Is it gonna be easy for me or not? So many different questions. The next day, I went back to work. And when I entered the work, I was the only Muslim woman who worked in that office. So I went in and I saw all of these women wearing a headscarf in solidarity with me. And this moment I will never forget, because it touched me so deep inside. And I was thinking, you know, there are people like this who feel that, you know, doesn't matter, you know, what happened. It's just, you know, we're human beings and we can support each other on different levels. At that time, I started thinking, you know, I am teaching in the university. I am doing so many other things. You know, I'm sure there are great professors, there are great instructors that they can do that. But I think there is something else in me I need to fulfill. And there is a duty and obligation of me that I have learned when I was little with my grandfather, and how he was felt that he has to fulfill his duty towards his people. I felt that I have the same message inside me, that I need to take an action. I need to create something. I need to do something. I don't know what it was. I started thinking, I wanted to do an organization. I need to create an organization, and I started thinking about that, and I have a few other friends who were graduate students at Yale at that time. And so I told these three guys, I have this idea, I want to create an organization. What do you think? And I said, that's a great idea. Can you help me with it? Yes, we should. Absolutely. Of course, being a graduate student, that didn't last more than a month. And I'm like, okay. So I waited until I started to work on the idea of putting everything together and working on hate speech issue and how hate speech can lead to hate crimes and how much it dictates our life. Sometimes when we keep hearing things, we believe in it. Just like the teacher that he told me about Hitler in 4th grade. Just like many other things that you have learned. As a child, these things sink in you. And when you grow up, you see it, project in many different directions. Not only that, but I wanted to change from within. We have a lot of things where, Muslim community, just like any other community, we have the positive and we have the negative. We have people who are moderate and in the middle, and we have extreme. And we have people who want to participate and make a change, and we have people who wants to destroy everything. But what is our responsibility here? What could we do to stop these things, to make that change and reform from within? How could we work with people of other faith to make it possible, to make it happen, to live in harmony and have our children doing the same thing? So, starting an organization now, I don't have any background, none whatsoever, about organization, because I lived in Iraq. Everything's linked to the government. There is no civil society other than religious institutes, and that's it. So started learning on the job. Quit my job at Yale and created the American Islamic Congress, and started to focus also on interfaith dialogue and understanding between Muslims and people of other faith. And that was very powerful for me, especially when I remember, when I came to the US, I was in college and in an English class, and I was talking to, we are people from many different countries, and there is an Israeli guy, and that was my first time seeing an Israeli guy. So he and I looked at each other, and then at the end of the school year, the professor said, well, you two work on a project together. That's hard. Now I'm coming from Iraq with my own package. He's coming from Israel, and so we sat, we talked, we fought, and then we became friends. Because we discovered each other on a personal level, we start appreciating each other more and more. And that was a learning experience for me. For a person who was, we had Christian, we had Mendais, we had Sunni Shiites, but we did never witness that. And also, being outside Iraq and exploring people from, discovering and exploring people from other countries and other faiths was really fascinating. So with the creation of AIC, I put these as principles. I'm working on human rights, civil rights issues, and religious freedom issues. When I talk about religious freedom issues, it always comes to me, you being oppressed in one country or another because you belong to a certain religion or follow a certain sect or do this or that. And that was very difficult. For people here do not really, see it as a problem because they live and democratic system, and they take democracy and freedom for granted. For a person like me who lived under a regime or lived in a country that these things did not exist, appreciate it, really appreciate it. It means a lot. And so I started working on many different projects, giving talks in different churches, synagogues, temples, universities, and traveling around the country to spread that message, working on a manual for elementary schools about 9/11 and Islam. And working on so many different, how to reduce and minimize extremism within the faith or within the community. Sometimes, people and Muslim Americans are divided. It's not one picture. Muslims are, not all of them are the same. They come from many different backgrounds. They come from many different countries. They have different way to practice their religion itself. And it was very interesting to see all of these things and to try to explain it to people who think Muslims, all of them are one look, one shape, one mindset. There are many American Muslims, they come here to enjoy freedom. Many Muslims came from other countries to enjoy economic privileges. Some came to study. Some are very involved and very religious, but some are, very liberal and secular, and some are involved in a political and cultural and religious teaching, and some are just enjoying American life and they don't want to deal with any of these issues. So you see all of these different pictures, all of these different sides. And that was, at the same time is a learning experience for me, but also I am giving these different lectures and encouraging people to come more and more involved. Iraq after that became a hot topic within a year or two. So I started writing about Iraq and the differences in Iraq and religious issues and political issues and all of that. And I went back to Iraq and I said, before I go back to Iraq, what could I do? I was in Iraq, I lived in there. How can I give back to my people? So I went back to Iraq in 2003, working on reforming the education system in Iraq and women empowerment. Now tell me about that last one. Reforming the education system was easy. Working on the other issue was... Anyway, so I went back and here I come. I come from a religious family, so women are separated, men are separated, and my grandfather's still there, and here I come, and I'm having 120 men working for me in a team. That was kind of not easy to digest, the very conservative society. Yet it was one of the wonderful, successful projects that I have done in surveying school and refurbishing it and training teachers and opening schools for out-of-school children. It was great. Started to work on women's issues, and that was very difficult because there are a lot of boundaries that ban, even though women highly educated in Iraq, they are, they hold high degrees. They are, in the work sphere, but politically, with a new change, many of the political parties, they don't want to get them involved. So what could we do? Start working with a lot of women activists on guaranteeing women quota, no less than, we were excited to have no less than 40%. We wanted that. So I remember we were lobbying the governing council at that time. We said, can you vote for 40%? And one of them came to me and said, Zainab, even Sweden, they don't have 40%. And I said, well, we did so many things better than Sweden this year. I said, okay, I'm going to sign it for you. Like, okay, great. And anyway, we ended up with no less than 25%. The sectarian violence started to burst. And many people are becoming more and more as victims of that sectarian division. In my personal opinion, I don't think people do have that problem. I think the leadership or these political parties, they are trying to divide people based on a sect or a religion or an ethnic group. And started to think, what can I do? I come from a religious background. I've been also associated, even though I don't claim that I am here or there, but they're always, you have your own package when you come. So start working with religious leaders from all different backgrounds. I go to Basra and I get the Christian leaders, the religious leaders, the Mendais religious leaders, and the Sunni and the Shia, and work with them. The violence increased. And I went back and I said, I want something that I work on the ground with these people to reduce violence. So I created, with the help of another organization in Chicago that are working on reducing violence, we worked on a program called Ambassadors for Peace. An ambassador for peace basically bring people who are part of the violence with many different groups, religious, sectarian, tribal, and political groups, and from different spheres, and we bring them all together. We train them to be conflict mediators. After we monitor areas and we see how big the violence is there in these areas, how many shooting happened in a week, how many people lost their lives, how could we stop that? We brought these people. I said, well, you enjoyed many years of fighting. What did you gain? Nothing. More life been lost. And how about you be on the other side? How about you be agent of change? How about you be ambassadors for peace? And we start working with them, training them. You know the mentality of your people. You know when they fight with the other group or with the other tribe, what do they do? How do they think? Could we get, could you stop that kind of violence between these groups one day? So we spread these ambassadors in these conflicted areas, and we started mediating every conflict that happened in these areas. Now, after 3 years, I could say that in the areas that we are working in, the conflict has been reduced 42%. And this year, we expanded to 3 other areas, and one of them is Sadr City, which is one of the most conflicted areas in Baghdad. Looking at the people who are, coming with, full energy and they want to make that change, but also looking at the leadership that they want. And I said, well, how about we bring them all together and make them, like an expert panel or advisory board. Of course, each one of them, they are highly contributing to the conflict, but you cannot tell them, of course. You just go and tell them, well, how could you stop this kind of conflict? I'm sure, with your message, you don't want your people to be killed, or other people to be killed, or anyone to be harmed. So we get them there and said, how could you advise us to reduce violence? How could you be that person who will make the change? And you'll be the person who carry the peace message. We get them there. We get hundreds of them. And they are still working and they are still trying to make that change. Working in an organization, looking into my personal experience in many years in many countries, back in Iraq and coming here. And then I start thinking about the youth. Youth represent about 70% of the population in the Muslim world. Very minimum programs that they've been, affected or has been invested in them. So we started a program for them. And these programs are to get them involved in activism in their own community. This program was started in here and been spread in 20 other countries in the region. Now, after 10 years, which is marked this month, is our 10th anniversary of the creation of the American Islamic Congress. We have 6 offices, 96 employees, and endless number of of members. And we still, not only me, but myself and the whole staff, create and believe passionately about moderation, peace, and harmony for people from many other faith and background. Thank you very much.